Welcome back to the Early Weigh-In podcast. This Saturday, we head to Mexico City. We got UFC Mexico City, man, a flyweight headliner between Brandon Moreno and Steve ERCEG. An absolute killer co-main event between Manuel Torres and Drew Dober. Again, 13 fights on tap this week. Let's recap last week and waste no time getting into this one. I did finish up 1.5 units. I believe that was last week. My biggest bet of the card was my 2-unit underdog shot on Nathaniel Wood at plus 143. 30-27, big knockdown in the first round, come through with ease there. I did miss my other shots on Molly McCann, Felipe Dos Santos, and Jai Herbert. Kind of thought I deserved that Jai Herbert, but, he lost that one for himself. Fight doesn't go the distance, plus 160, Molly McCann, cashed with ease, under 2.5 in the Duncan, which I know we both had some action on. And then fight goes to decision, man, in the main event. That was the first time Leon Edwards had been finished in, I think, 27 professional fights. So I was happy to take that number. I think he quit, man. I think he had enough and absolutely quit on himself in front of his home crowd. As a bad performance for me. But happy to be up unit and a half, get back on track. Throw it over to you, man. Can talk about your continued streak.
Yes, a six card winning streak, which it's tough to complain about, but I still only ended up profiting 0.12 units. Had a unit on Kevin Holland over Gunnar Nelson. 170 Kevin Holland's the real deal. I really like him at that weight class. I hope he stays there. Also had a bet on Jai Herbert minus 110, and I agree with you. I think we probably should have gotten the nod there. Colin Laughlin versus Nathan Fletcher at plus 110. That was another close one, but happy to be on the plus money side. My biggest bet of the night, along with you, was the under 2.5 rounds in the Vucinic Duncan fight. A little sketchy there. It went a little further than I anticipated it would, but we still ended up hitting that. Worst bet of the card, Terrari by TKO. When the fight started, he just looked stuck in the mud. I thought he'd be a little bit faster fighter, but it was like he was scared to throw, and maybe it was just getting caught early that really got into his head.
I think it was. I think he got buzzed early, and I think it affected him the whole fight. It really looked that way to me.
But even before then, I thought he looked slow. Like even in the few exchanges that we got before he got tagged, I was like, man, this is not how I saw it on tape. But whatever, it was plus 390. I guess it's not supposed to hit. Pulia versus Christian Duncan under 1.5 rounds at plus money. I saw finishing upside for both guys, but they wanted to clinch each other for the whole fight. So anyway, plus 0.12 units, and hopefully we can make it a 7-card streak this week.
Let's go.
Looking at the first fight of the card, we're in the lightweight division where we see Austin Thud Hubbard taking on Markel Medeiros. From what I've seen on tape, Markel Medeiros, he wants to play, counter striker, but he does have an issue with keeping his chin up during extended exchanges. He does have some wrestling, but he's yet to produce a takedown in the UFC. But he is really good at putting combinations together. He just struggles to sit down on his punches and really do damage to his opponents. Where Hubbard, he's more of a pressure forward fighter. He looks to break down his opponent over 3 rounds. He is very hittable. And I don't really think that he excels anywhere in MMA, to be honest with you. He's like average everywhere. I think Markel's going to be okay in this spot. I think his movement is going to be key. When Hubbard does get a takedown, I think Markel has the skills to pop right back up. And I think the volume is going to be the deciding factor here. With Markel landing the cleaner shots as well. I'm kind of seeing this as a 30-27 or at least a 29-28 for Markel Medeiros, but at the minus 190 price tag, I'm not really interested in taking a spot here.
Yeah, I've kind of gone back and forth on this one. Not that I'd be too keen on betting Medeiros at that minus 190, minus 200, but I've kind of contemplated the Austin Hubbard side. I bet Landon Quinones last time out. You and I were kind of split on that fight. And it went to a close decision. So it's kind of hard for me to lay off of Hubbard at plus 160 when I rate him a better fighter, just truth be told, than Landon Quinones. But, you mentioned it. Hubbard doesn't do anything great. The guy's not dangerous at all. But for a fight that I also think goes 15 minutes, he's shown me multiple times his cardio is something that I can trust. I just think there's a big speed difference here, man. Markel seems way faster with his shots, with his calf kicks. I do think Markel actually has the ability to ground Hubbard a little bit here. And if he does, I think it's close enough to to swing what I expect to be extremely close rounds. So money line wise, it's dog or pass to me if I got to a side. But I'm kind of with you. I think Marco Madero's by decision's how I see this one playing out as well. Moving down men's featherweight, we got Jamal Emmers taking on Gabriel Miranda. Emmers, man, shown us time and time again. He's not really worthy of a big chalk price tag because he finds ways to lose even when he's winning these fights. And Miranda's a pretty dangerous guy, not so much really on the feet, but on the mat. If he's able to find his way, down with you, find his way on top, he's got some pretty tricky submissions. Outside of that, though, Emmers, to me, kind of has him covered and has plenty of advantages here. I think his striking is far better, technique, speed, everything. I'm not really high on the durability of Miranda as well. I would not be shocked if Emmers were to find the kill shot somewhere in rounds 2 or 3. So just, barring another lapse in IQ or something where Emmers hurts him and follows him to the ground and, I don't know, following some type of meme finish, honestly, Miranda's is early finish or bust here like most fights. I like Jamal Emmers, and I kind of feel like he gets it done in this later half of this fight.
Yeah, the reason why I'd lay off of putting Emmers in any type of parlay or anything is that he is kind of notoriously a slow starter. And that's where, like you said, Gabriel Miranda shines. So yeah. I do think that there's going to be some sketchy moments early. But this being at elevation and knowing Miranda's history, I do think that Jamal Emmers will take over late. The fight doesn't go to decisions, minus 210. And I think it's pretty likely that we see an Emmers KO if it does finish. And you're still getting that at plus money. So if I was looking to play that in any way, I'd much rather take plus money Emmers KO before minus 325 in a parlay. And even then, I wouldn't feel too comfortable with it. So probably a layoff spot for me as well, but I am going to go Emmers. Moving up the card, we go to the lightweight division. Rafa Garcia taking on Vince Pichel. When I came into this one, I thought it was going to be old man versus old man, but Rafa only being 30 years old really surprised the hell out of me. I've broke him down a few times before, but I swear he was 36 years old last time I broke him down. On the Pichel side, insanely fit for a 42-year-old. You can tell he's dense and he's durable. He's shown his durability. And when he does land, he lands with some bad intentions, man. What is not going well for him is he is a little bit slower, which is, expected at his age. By the second round of his last fight, he was completely flat-footed, still able to sit down on his strikes, but his movement just suffered severely. Yeah. Rafa, he's a little bit smaller for the weight class, and in his last fight against Grant Dawson, he was completely outclassed, man. And looking back on it, really tough stylistic matchup for him, to be fair. He's a little heavy on his lead leg, which opens him up for the calf kicks and single legs from his opponents. And I think that Vince Pichel could capitalize on that if he gets it going early. But what Rafa Garcia does way better than Vince Pichel is sitting on his jab. When he finds his rhythm, he's patient, and he knows that he can rely on that to beat his opponent over the course of 3 rounds. And we saw a perfect example of that in his fight with Clay Guida. I think this one being at elevation, I could see it becoming a little sloppy down the stretch. It probably goes to decision just because both guys are so durable. But I do think that Rafa's just a little bit cleaner in the striking. I do think they kind of cancel each other out wrestling wise. And I think this probably sees the judges' scorecards. That being said, there is a huge number on the under, and both guys have the power to knock one of the other out. Vince Pichel being 42 years old, it's really only a matter of time, and we saw him wobbled a few times in his last fight. So that under is certainly tempting, but I think that this is another layoff spot for me.
Yeah, I doubt I'm going to have any action on it. I kind of see it pretty similar. Vince was, like you kind of touched on, a guy who's typically been able to kind of out hustle guys in the past, have the better cardio, find the top time when it's needed. And in his last couple, I think it's pretty evident. Like you said, he's kind of slowed down at 42 years old. Looks a little labored in those rounds 2 and 3. And I feel like, you touched on a little bit in the way they kind of cancel each other out and things. I think they kind of fight really similar. I think they kind of do the same stuff. And I feel like at his age, Garcia is just able to do it a little bit better, able to push a much higher pace, potentially at elevation. You talked about being the better striker. I do think Garcia kind of just has his number everywhere at this stage in his career. I think he probably lands takedowns the later this fight goes to put a stamp on it. I'm really not counting out Rafa finding a sub late in this fight, but I kind of feel like with the historic durability of the two, that largely hits the scorecards as well, where I think Rafa gets it done in front of the Mexican home crowd, man. A fight I don't have a ton of thoughts on. Moving down to the women's strawweight division between Julia Pilastri and Lupi Godinez. I told you before the podcast, the verdict's just kind of out on Lupi. You know what you got with her. I really don't seem like there's been many improvements through her throughout her UFC tenure. She's just kind of like a solid wrestle boxer. My issue is sometimes the fight IQ. Sometimes she boxes when she should be wrestling, wrestles when she should be boxing, losing to Luana Carolina, having close fights with old girl on her way out.
Corey McKenna.
Calvillo, on her way out. I'm thinking Godinez should just steamroll her, and she goes to a close striking battle with her. It's just Godinez is not somebody I really want to lay minus 200 on, even when she's getting a step down in competition in her home crowd here. Pilastri, I don't think she's a bad fighter. And if she is able to keep the fight on the feet, I think she might have a slight edge on the feet. It's at least 50-50, I guess. But the reason I don't want to take a shot, and you touched on it, is the Corey McKenna fight. McKenna did not wrestle the first half of that fight, but when she wanted to wrestle, she was successful with it, man. So I just feel like if Lupi goes out here with the game plan that's needed and sticks to it, Lupi should come out on top. So I like Lupi by decision. No action from me, though.
Yeah, this is Lupi versus herself right here, man. I think that she has all the skills in the world to be able to dominate in this fight. It's just a matter of if she puts it together. Certainly not a reliable fighter and not one that you want to trust at a big price tag. So I'm with you for all the same reasons. I think Lupi should dominate this fight. It's a huge step down from Verna Jandiroba and Mackenzie Dern. And for Pilastri, it's a massive step up from Corey McKenna to Lupi Godinez. I think that this is a buy low spot for Lupi Godinez as far as she's lost her last two. This is a Mexico card. She's obviously the one that they're trying to set up here. And like I said, she's her own worst enemy in this fight. It's all up to whether or not she shows up for it or not. So yeah, Lupi's the pick, but it's another layoff spot for me. Moving up the card, we go to the featherweight division. Melky Costa taking on Christian Rodriguez. C-Rod looked locked in his last fight, man.
Bashy.
Yes, Bashy. Thank you. Yeah, in the Bashy fight. And he needed it coming back from that loss to Erosa. Whenever he was dealing with the early pressure of Bashy, he looked super calm and was really just waiting for his spots. His scrambles were on point like they usually are. On the Melky side, though, he's coming off of probably the biggest win of his career against Andre Touchy-Feely. Honestly, I'm not even sure I've ever seen anybody successfully grab a guillotine from the guard the way he did against Feely. But that just shows you how high level his submission game can be doing that to another black belt. Melky honestly has some pretty bad takedown defense at only 50%. And I think if Christian Rodriguez wants to push that, and I think he could wind up on top quite a bit. But Melky is comfortable off of his back. A lot of the times that's not a good thing, but he does a really good job of setting up sweeps and winding up in a more dominant position in scrambles. All that being said, I honestly think C-Rod's going to beat his ass here. The submission does worry me. And I didn't really like, when I look at the Costa side, I didn't like how quickly he tapped to Moises. I know that Moises is an amazing grappler. I'm sure he's got an insane squeeze, but it just looked like he accepted defeat once he got into a less dominant position. And I didn't love that. And then you look at the Erosa sub over C-Rod, I know Erosa is super long and lanky for the division, so it's a little tricky to make comparisons there. But Costa does have that guillotine set up. We just saw it in his last fight. So right now I'm kind of looking, or at least considering the fight ends by sub at plus 300-ish. But if I don't play that, then I'm more than likely just going to play C-Rod straight. I do expect to have at least one tight butthole moment, with Costa getting to at least a close submission at least once. But outside of that, C-Rod's got him covered on the feet. I think he's just a better overall fighter. This seems like a significant step down in competition for Christian Rodriguez from what he's been looking at, and I think he should dominate here.
So I've been on the C-Rod train a bit. I cashed him at plus 200 against Rosas Jr. I cashed him against Bashy at plus 240 earlier this year, and I struggle with the market now making him a favorite. That's just not really the spot I like to back Christian Rodriguez at, especially as a featherweight. I think he's a bit undersized for 145. And I've contemplated all week whether, if I think the early money on Costa this week was sharp or not. Because I don't really see Costa as this prospect who's going to gas himself out trying to grapple C-Rod. I feel like Costa is a bit more seasoned, has a couple UFC fights under his belt, potentially has a bit more control than these younger guys. I don't know, man. On the feet, I do think C-Rod is the better fighter here. But what I think I can most confidently say over anything is that I think round 3 goes to Christian Rodriguez at a fairly high clip here. I know I can trust his cardio and activity down the stretch. I feel like I can trust him not to get stuck on bottom. I'm with you. I think he looked dialed in the Bashy fight. The knees up the middle once he got him backed against the cage. Like it was some slick stuff, man. I know the worry of the guillotine and things is there, but as I've kind of looked more into this fight, I have taped it earlier today, kind of thinking about the C-Rod side as well. So I was kind of happy to hear you on the same thing and kind of have similar thoughts, and maybe something I look at later in the week as well. I'm on the C-Rod side, and maybe that's me just trying to get one back over Costa after the Feely fight. But, yeah, I like Christian Rodriguez to get it done too, man. Atiba Gaudier taking on Jose Medina at 185. When you see the durability of somebody like Jose Medina and the regional opponents of Gaudier being his debut as well, you could bring in the question of, is this line wide? And it potentially is, but I kind of have a feeling that it doesn't get out of round 1, man. I think Gaudier's, has all the athletic speed, everything to go with a skill set that's honestly not bad. I think he's a really, really dangerous striker. My biggest worry is kind of at the elevation with the frame that he carries. If Medina's able to make him work, if he, hurts Medina early and gasses himself going for the finish, it's a bit of a worry. But I thought the Dana White Contender Series fight was pretty impressive. Olympic level Japanese guy is pushing a hard pace, making him work, trying to take him down. And he didn't really gas out. He stayed in the fight. He finds the knockout in round 2. And honestly, I was a lot more impressed watching it back than I was live. I still think he's quite raw, but I don't think Medina does anything well. And I just feel like if you're backing Medina, you're backing Medina hoping that Atiba goes out here and slips on a banana peel in his debut. So I don't think he does, man. I kind of think he's going to put Medina away. So I like Atiba Gaudier, first round knockout.
Yeah, I tend to lean the same way. I've taken 2 stabs on Jose Medina, and both of them, it's like I feel like they were fine bets, but it's just like he doesn't have the ability to put his foot on the gas. He's just not that good of a fighter, and you can only bank on durability so much. I guess, in hindsight, like had I not tried to play him those first 2 times, I would be more inclined here just because we are at elevation, and he does seem to have like a steady, slow pace that he can keep up for 15 minutes. But yeah, you're just banking on him not getting annihilated in the first round and hoping that he can edge out maybe the next 2. And I'm not really looking to play it that way. So it's a pass for me. But I agree. I think Gautier is the side here. Moving down to the flyweight division in the prelim main event, Edgar Chairez taking on CJ Vergara. Edgar, he's decent all around. I think he pushes a really good pace. If his opponents struggle with cardio, he's the type that will expose it. Edgar Chairez's biggest issue, I think, is his hitability. That being said, he's also extremely durable, so it's not that bad of a thing for him yet. He's yet to be finished by KO. Unlucky for Suarez, though, like CJ has a really good cardio, and I'm not sure that he's going to be able to expose that here. CJ, up until his last fight, he had avoided being KO'd his whole career, even though he had been caught and wobbled multiple times before. He's shown like some incredible heart, and specifically that Daniel Lacerda fight. He finds a way to stay in there. I do think that Suarez is going to have a significant advantage with his range. He's got some really punishing calf kicks and body kicks. And then he's also sporting a 3-inch reach advantage, which I think will be a big part of in this fight if CJ isn't able to work inside, get to his clinch positions. If the fight hits the mat, I think both guys will kind of cancel each other out, similar to the Rafa Garcia-Vince Pichel fight. They're 125ers, so even if they do get to the mat, they're really hard to hold down. Both of them have pretty decent get-up games. I think Suarez is going to be able to pick him apart at distance and possibly find a finish if he can stunt the movement of Vergara early with those calf kicks. So maybe a Suarez look, but even then, like, what is it? Minus 270 isn't what I want to play him at. This is just like not a fighter I want to parlay. So it's probably another layoff spot for me.
Yeah, Vergara is not somebody I'm a fan of betting, but yeah, I don't think Suarez is worthy of a price tag like this at all, man. Just I don't think he's done enough in the UFC to be warranted of a price tag like this. Suarez, though, I do think he's 1,000% the more dangerous of the two. Much more KO power, much more opportunistic submissions. His guillotine is slick, man. I would not be shocked if Vergara finds himself in that guillotine at some point in this fight. And it kind of sucks for anybody wanting to back CJ Vergara because his best chances to get it done are probably on the scorecards against the hometown Mexican fighter, because CJ's not dangerous at all, man. You kind of talked about his tough, his durability. When he does get cracked, he'll run around the octagon until he gets his wits back to him and things. And he does have reliable cardio and volume down the stretch. So, at the end of the day, it's a flyweight fight. Outside of that guillotine, I do think it probably goes the distance, and round 3 might be kind of close. But I just kind of think the firepower and willingness to come forward early in the fight will get Suarez the first 2 rounds. So I like Edgar Suarez as well, but we'll not have any action on that fight unless I can find just something later in the week, but not too keen on that one. This next fight's one that I did look into playing. We stay at 125 where we see Ronaldo Rodriguez taking on Kevin Borjas. I had some time down with my little boy recovering this weekend, and I got to tape this fight when it was higher up on the card, and I liked Ronaldo Rodriguez at minus 140, was tempted to play it, was probably going to play it, and now he's minus 170, a minus 180 on some books, potentially money coming in on Borjas now, so I'm monitoring it. I think that Ronaldo Rodriguez is just the better fighter, man, honestly. I think he's got way more ways to win this fight. If I'm stuck not playing this one, I think it's okay because I think round 1's going to be close. That's where Kevin comes out hot. He's a pretty solid striker. His hands are fast, but he's shown us time and time again that he can fade. And I do think he could come out here and potentially get up on Lazy Boy early. But I also feel like if Ronaldo Rodriguez lands one takedown, not only is the round maybe over with Borjas stuck on bottom, but I think the fight could be over. I think there's that level of difference on the mat here from these two. You also see Ronaldo Rodriguez last time fighting at UFC Noche. He basically gets put away, man, on the feet, dropped, gets stuck in one of the deepest triangles, and just you watch the triangle that he gets out of versus the one that Jalen Turner taps to, and you see different levels of heart. And Ronaldo Rodriguez has things that you just can't teach, things that I like to back in a fighter. And I think the pressure, the pace, the grappling is going to get to Borjas. I like Ronaldo Rodriguez round 2-3 sub, which is like plus 950 if you have FanDuel. So I'm probably going to play the Rodriguez money line and maybe even some props as well. I feel pretty confident saying I like him to get the late finish here.
Yeah, like you mentioned that Borjas is a fast starter. He stole round 1 off of Joshua Van, who's a far better fighter than both of these guys. But,
yeah.
It does seem like the UFC is trying to set up Ronaldo Rodriguez with a some favorable matchups, putting him on the bigger cards, matching him up against some of the lower level guys in the division. And I think after this one, he's probably going to find himself in a trouble spot against some better competition. But this is probably one that he edges out as long as he can survive that round one. But I do not see anything special about Ronaldo Rodriguez that really makes me want to back him. Yeah, that's all I've got. I do think that he'll edge it out, maybe 29-28 on the judges' scorecards. Moving up, we go to the bantamweight division, where I do have my first bet of the card, David Martinez taking on Simon Oliveira. Martinez, he brings this Kyokushin karate style. He's got really devastating leg kicks, really good distance control, and he's consistently moving around the cage. Sometimes he throws so hard that he kind of telegraphs his attacks, but he can make up for it usually because he is so fast. Oliveira, he also does a pretty good job with leg kicks. He goes to that pretty often when he is on the feet. But all of that is just to set up his takedown. The ground is definitely where Simon does his best work. And when he can't get it to the ground, he does seem to become a little bit desperate. He starts throwing in spinning attacks and, anything to try and get some offense on the feet going. Being a Brazilian grappler, he does struggle with getting the fight to the mat with somebody who has good counter wrestling. And I think David Martinez is going to be able to avoid getting taken down early and really start to pick him apart down the stretch. We watched Oliveira blow his wad early against Daniel Marcos, and this being at elevation, I think that this is one of the matchups where the UFC is, purposefully showcasing one of their talented Mexican prospects. They put him on the main card. When you look at both of these guys, I don't really think that they're main card worthy, which makes me think even more so that they're trying to showcase David Martinez here, the first brother-sister duo to ever make it into the UFC. And, like I said, if he can survive that early pressure from Simon, I think that we just see him absolutely pick him apart and find the KO shot down the stretch, probably ending this short-lived UFC career of Oliveira's.
Yeah, very similar style to Daniel Marcos. It's David Martinez. I bet Daniel Marcos as a dog to Simon Oliveira in his debut. Martinez is a guy that I did try to fade on Dana White Contender Series. I think Martinez is top-notch striker. He's coming into his division already, probably a top 10 striker in that division. But I don't know really how much more there is to David's game. I don't really know what his cardio is like if he's pushed by a higher level of competition. And I don't really know what his bottom game is like if he's going to run into a good wrestler. Simon Oliveira, I kind of compare him, to like a Gabriel Miranda, truth be told. I feel like he's got to get his opportunistic submission because he's not a very good wrestler and doesn't have a lot on the feet, doesn't look to be too durable, and kind of fades down the stretch if he can't get his game going. And I see the same thing, man. I don't think he's going to be the one to test the pace or the top or the bottom game of David Martinez. Martinez, like you mentioned on output, that guy just is excellent at keeping at his kicking range. He's not really super impressive with his hands, but very impressed with his kicks and ability to keep it to the range that he likes. Minus 360. It was like minus 400, so potentially some love on the Oliveira side, but I really don't get it, man. As kind of one-dimensional as Martinez is, I keep going back to I kind of feel like it looks like the Daniel Marcos, and I think Martinez probably finds that kill shot in round 2 or 3 once Oliveira started to fade. So I think you got some nice CLV on that, and I think you're going to hit it for plus 1.85 units on Saturday. Rosas Jr. versus Vince Morales at 135. You don't see many guys trying Peruvian neckties in fights. Like Vince has some slick grappling to him, but almost kind of like Jamal Emmers, he just finds ways to lose fights, even when they're close, he just doesn't do enough when he needs to. But to his defense, and again here, UFC never does this dude any favors. He's always matched up with the tough younger prospect where, he's outgunned and outskilled pretty much everywhere. And again, I kind of see it the same here. I expect Rosas to probably get to his positions early in this fight. Probably gets to the back in round one. It's the question of how long can he keep it up. If he doesn't get the finish, will the elevation cause issues for Rosas Jr.? I don't know. Vince has never been, Vince was the public underdog of the week. And I know you waited literally until hours before the fight time to get Elijah Smith, earlier this year. Vince is never a guy that even at plus 270 that I want to go out, or plus 250 that I want to back. But Rosas Jr. is also a guy that when I see his opponent at plus 250, and I know Vince can grapple at a high pace for equal the amount of time, maybe longer than Rosas. I don't know. It's a little tempting. I'd never play Rosas Jr. here. I do think he finds his positions early. I'm just not so sold that he finds that finish and can keep it up. I think it could get hairy down the stretch, but I still think Rosas Jr. pulls it out.
Yeah, if this was pre the Christian Quinones loss for Raul Rosas, I would definitely consider Vince Morales to maybe, pull out some veteran moves and catch him,
Mm-hmm.
But since that loss, it seems like Raul Rosas has really put together a pretty good game plan, not completely gassing himself early and still able to hold down some positions. This is a setup fight, obviously, and you touched on Vince Morales just never getting a great matchup since coming back to the UFC. I think this is a Raul Rosas Jr. spot, but being as one-dimensional as he is, it's really tough to back him at minus 400 or more. So it's a layoff spot for me, but I do think he gets it done here. Moving up to the middleweight division, we got Kelvin Gastelum taking on Joe Pyfer. Honestly, surprising that Kevin Gastelum's only 33 years old. I thought that he was much older. He certainly has a lot of fight miles on him. The only thing that I think really favors him in this matchup is his cardio. This being at elevation, we've seen Joe Pyfer kind of gas before. And I think that that's something that Kelvin could capitalize on down the stretch. But he's got to make it past the first two rounds to be able to capitalize on that. And he could be into some trouble early. He's never been knocked out, but Joe Pyfer punches hard enough. And Kelvin, like I said, he's got them fight miles on him. So I do think it's only a matter of time. And then on the mat, I think Joe Pyfer is just so strong that he could find a submission there as well. For me, again, it's like not the fighter I want to back at minus 300, 400 and Joe Pyfer, but maybe the submission line, maybe the inside the distance line is how I'd look to play this. Maybe even this fight doesn't go to the scorecards. I don't know if that's even a decent number. Let me see. Yeah, so fight doesn't go to decision is minus 148. I don't that. See some finishing potential for both guys, especially if we look at it over the full 15 minutes. So that would be how I'd look to play this fight, but I do lean Joe Pyfer to get this done.
In order to cover this line, I think Piper's got to wrestle and try to find the submission as well. I think Kelvin's shown me enough historically. I think it's going to be a tough cast for Pyfer to find the finish on the feet. Maybe he lands. I think it's going to be a little trouble finding Kelvin, who's I think is a little bit faster of the two. And again, the durability shown me that Gastelum's ate some hard shots before, man. I'd be shocked if Pyfer is the first one to put him down. But again, fight miles, it's going to happen at some point. I just feel like the grappling is the path here to beat Kelvin. Kelvin is a bloated welterweight, and I feel like once Pyfer finds himself on top, there will be a significant strength advantage. Pyfer's also in camp with Brady. Sean Brady just coming off a main event. They've been in camp together. I expect Pyfer to be in tip-top shape, probably coming in one of the best camps that he's had. So is the line wide in terms of who these guys have fought and stuff in the past? Maybe. But yeah, no interest on Gastelum. Wouldn't be shocked if Pyfer gets him down, cranks on an arm or something. Getting to probably my favorite fight on the card, man. We got Manuel Torres taking on Drew Dober. It should be an absolute banger from the start. Torres is everybody's favorite kind of fighter. Killed or be killed. Comes out in round one. 90% of his finishes, I believe, in round one. This guy's got a great frame for lightweight, crazy fast, athletic, hits like an absolute truck. But showed us the last time out. His defense is piss poor, and he's definitely, to me, probably the less durable of the two. On the Dober side, I think Dober's a lot more technical on the feet than Torres is, carries the same amount of power. I do favor him durability-wise, cardio-wise. There has been moments later in his career where maybe it showed me the durability could be fading. And someone like Manuel Torres, the way he cracks, sure, could be enough to put Dober away. But I feel like if Dober gets past 3.5 minutes, the fight probably heavily starts to swing his favor, especially in elevation. So if this fight, or if Torres continues to take a lot of love, I've got him in the fantasy league, but I'm kind of tempted to bet Dober, man. I think he's a much more proven guy that I can trust in a firefight, everything. So yeah, I'm going to side with Drew Dober here.
Yeah, I have to agree, man. The last fight for Manuel Torres against Bahamondes, he just looked at a fish out of water with the blitzes. His defense looked awful. It seems like just a little bit of movement and length just completely threw him off of his game. Drew Dober doesn't really have either of those, but he does have durability. And I think this being at elevation, as long as he can avoid that kill shot early, he probably takes this one away. He, I know it was a doctor stoppage, but even before that, the Frivola fight in round 1, I think Manuel Torres is going to come with a, pretty similar game plan, trying to finish him early. This is, the under 1.5, I think, is minus 190. I think that there's probably more value on like Dober decision, just because if this does get over that 1.5, I think it's probably sloppy, and I like Drew Dober. His ability to kind of lean on a more MMA game plan, where I think Torres is kind of going to run out of options really quickly. So Dober decision, I'm sure that's ridiculous. I actually don't know. It's just, as I was breaking it down, I thought of that. Let's see. Dober decision plus 800. Like, I'd throw a half unit on it. I really do think that there's potential for that, especially if it gets sloppy and gets over that 1.5. So I'm with you. I like Drew Dober here.
It reminds me of the time you bet what was it, the over something in the Rockhold and Costa fight.
Yeah.
Ton of firepower, but at elevation, it slips over that 1.5. It could be a shit show. So, hey, plus 800, that's the side I'm leaning if it goes to decision 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wonder if we could even – no, they don't have – they probably don't have those out, but like a Drew Dober – maybe they do. No, Drew Dober decision only. I would really like that line, especially if we could get it at plus money. They don't have that out yet, but that'd be something I'd also be looking at. Moving on to the main event, we got Brandon Moreno taking on Steve ERCEG. Truth be told, like, Moreno line's kind of getting out of whack here, man. Like, These are two extremely high-level guys. Steve ERCEG did get knocked out in his last fight, but I think that he's taken a pretty decent amount of time off, a little over 7 months, 8 months. And I think that we've got a fresh fighter coming in here against Brandon Moreno. When you look at Steve ERCEG, he's only got a 60% takedown defense. But if you take away the Pantoja fight, he's actually got really good takedown defense. He's only been taken down one other time against Alexandro Costa, and that he wasn't able to keep control for more than a minute. I think that this fight likely takes place on the feet for the most part, and ERCEG's so quick and kind of throws from some weird angles. I think that he could probably make this fight a whole lot closer than the odds suggest. I certainly lean Steve ERCEG. As far as the odds go, I think he's going to make it competitive. And I'm much more tempted to bet Steve ERCEG than put Moreno in a parlay or bet him straight. How you feeling?
Shocked to hear you say that. I know you like Brandon Moreno quite a bit.
I love I got most of my collection is Brandon Moreno cards, but honestly, this line's just got me all twisted. I can't play it, and I got to be real with myself. This is going to be a really tough fight for him.
Yeah, so coming out of tape, I expected to see Brandon Moreno the favorite. It's in Mexico City. Public really likes him as a fighter. We've seen him in numerous championship fights, and He's coming off an absolute shutout over Albazi, where ERCEG's coming off of a KO loss. I'm with you, man. I think the line's kind of getting out of hand. ERCEG is if ERCEG does not shoot that takedown against Pantoja in round 5 and just continues to box him, he probably wins that fight. And we're talking about him going 50-50, an IQ lapse away from beating the guy who's beaten Brandon Moreno 3 times, and he's this big of an underdog. I think it's clearly dog or pass. I think it largely takes place on the feet as well, where ERCEG has very, very solid boxing. I do think he's a bit more stiff and doesn't have the volume of Brandon Moreno. He kind of doesn't like flow and have the footwork of Brandon Moreno, but I still think like technical pocket boxing, ERCEG's tight. His mechanics and technique are clean. And I think he's a really good fighter who kind of just got rushed to the belt a little bit too soon. I do think it goes 25 minutes. I know I can trust Moreno's cardio, and I do think he would be the one who's landing any offensive takedowns, and that might be just enough to swing at his favor in Mexico City. I don't think there's a finish, but I think 90% of the finishing upside's on Brandon Moreno. So I do kind of understand him getting some love this week, but there comes a point where I could be talking to an ERCEG bet. So Brandon Moreno decision is my final pick, but yeah, it's dog or pass if you're forcing a play out of me.
And it's at plus 195 now. 5 points shouldn't be the difference maker, but if I see plus 200 anything on Steve ERCEG, I'm likely going to put a unit on it. I just think that that's plus EV long term.
And I agree, man. It's all 13 fights going down at Mexico City, over a mile above sea level. Elevation should make things interesting. I appreciate you guys, as always, hanging out, watching the pod. Make sure to like and subscribe. We'll see y'all next week.
Peace.